Hello everyone, welcome back to Basic Photoshop Tutorials. This week I'm going to be doing a button, something similar to the Nintendo DS, and here's what our finished product will look like. You'll notice that I have it set up as a Nintendo DS. So let's just get right to it. I already have the circle for time's sake. What we're going to do is we're just going to go into the blending options and we're going to tweak these options. So we're going to start with the drop shadow, and what we're going to do is we're going to leave it on multiply. Leave it black. We're going to make the opacity 100. We're going to change the distance to 0. And the size, we're going to leave, we're going to go make it 14. And the spread, we'll make it a 2. And that's going to give us just this little shadow around our button, sort of adding to a 3D-ish effect, as you can see down here. So if you closed it, open blending options up once again, and go to, we're going to add a bevel this time. That bevel is, we're going to change the depth to 235. We're going to change the size, or we're going to leave the size at 5, and we're going to leave soften at 0. You can add a soften if you want. 1 or 2 works good in this case, but for this tutorial it's not important. We're going to make our angle 0, and our degree down here for the altitude 90, so it's dead center, and we're going to turn off use global light. Sorry, we should have done that first, but I did not. And there we go. And then we're going to come down into here. We're going to change screen. We're going to change that to multiply. We're going to change the white to black, as you can see what I've done here. So now we have that bevel that goes around it equal all the way around. Leave 75 as is there. And the last thing we're going to do in this case, we're going to go to stroke. We're going to add a stroke of just 2. And we leave the opacity at 100. We're going to change red to black. And that's all we're going to be doing in blending options, so we're just going to hit OK. So now we have our basic shadowing and stroke around our object, or our button for in this case. What we're going to do now is change the white. We're going to change it to the color gray here, which is 4F, 4F, 4F. And what that is that's just sort of the color I've used for this tutorial. It's not important. You don't have to use that color. You can use any color you want, and it's totally up to you. But again, we're going to be using the color that I've chosen, so hit OK after that. And now we have our basic button. Now obviously this button has some shadowing and some highlights here on the top and the bottom. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer. We're going to hold Control and left click on our shape that we created, or the button for this in this case. And we're going to bring up the marquee. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Edit, Stroke, and we're going to create a marquee. Now usually what I do as a rule, and I'm just going to cancel out of that, don't do that if you want, but what I'm going to do here is, as a rule, is I do, if the bevel size is 5, I do 2 less than 5. So in this case I'm going to be doing a stroke of 3. So with the stroke open and our layer obviously selected, stroke, and I'm going to be doing 3. Now I'm going to leave it, I'm going to make it white, so if you don't already have it white, make sure it's white, and make sure you have inside selected so that it's inside that marquee. And then we're just going to leave the other settings and hit OK, and right away you can see what happens is a stroke is created around our object inside that marquee. Now what we're going to do, before you get rid of the marquee, go to select inverse, and with that layer that we just created selected, just hit delete, because what happens is when we create that stroke it bleeds a bit, so we don't want it bleeding onto our black stroke underneath. So now what we're going to do is, clearly you can see that this will be our highlight. So I'm going to zoom in on that, and I'm going to grab my eraser tool and a brush that is not too big and not too small, but just middle of the road here, and something that has a bit of a fade around it. And we're going to select that brush. We're going to make sure the opacity is at 100. Make sure everything else is as is up here, brush and 100 flow as well. And we're going to delete the bottom part, and I'm just left clicking here, and just to right about there, not halfway, but just underneath, and deleting all the way up here to just before the top here, as you can see. So what we've done now is we've created this highlight. So I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to change my opacity to 25, and I'm just going to really quickly left click down and just go right along the outside. As you can see there, I just went right along it and sort of dims the outside there, and I'm going to do the same on the bottom part. and I'm just gonna do what I call padding. So I'm just sort of, you know, adding a little bit of technique here. I'm just left clicking around here with the 25 opacity so we get rid of a little bit of the harshness up in this area and down in this area here. So obviously it looks pretty good, but what I'm going to do and take it a step further is go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to blur that highlight. I've already done it here obviously, so I'm going to make it a 0.7 pixels for the highlight. So I'm going to hit OK there, and we're just going to zoom out so we can see what we've done. So right away you can see that the highlight is created, and we have a more of a realistic button happening now, but we still have to create the bottom highlight. So in order to do that, I'm going to zoom back in. We're just going to go through the same steps, however there are little differences. So we're going to control left click on that original layer, original shape. We're going to, before we go ahead and create our stroke, we're going to go to select, modify, and we're going to contract. We're going to contract that marquee by 1 pixel, and that brings it in a bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer. We're going to go to Edit, Stroke, and instead of 3 this time, we're just going to make the stroke as a 1. All the other settings stay the same. And then we're just going to get rid of that marquee. So we're going to hit Control D. And then we're going to go back to our eraser tool. We're going to make sure our opacity is at 100 again. And we're just going to delete the top part up in here, just to about the bottom part. And then again on this side, just to about the left halfway part. And that's pretty good right there. And we don't have to go into the 25 opacity in this case. We could just turn it down and over here, because what we don't want to do is to lose that line, because it is such a thin line, and when we do go to the filter and blur, we're going to lose a bit of that line. So with that layer that we just created selected, we're going to go to filter, and instead of going back into blur, Gaussian blur, it's just up here already ready to go for you. So just click that and it does the exact same blur as before. And we're going to zoom out again, and we're just going to see our final product there. So if you find that bottom highlight too soft or not, not there enough, just select that layer and just duplicate it, and you'll get a little you'll get the double effect on there. And if you want, you can just play with the opacity settings so you get the highlight to where you would like it. But I'm just going to leave it there. That's all I'm looking to do, just the button effect. If I've created these, like I was saying earlier, I've created these letters to go over top of the buttons, and these are just sort of like a custom letter, and all I've done with these is just made an Arial narrow and then played around with some of the settings, including the font settings itself. I've changed a bit of the width, and I've also gone ahead and with my move tool I've shrunk that original sizing down so that you get a little more of a realistic Nintendo looking effect. So I'm just going to leave it there. That's our button, and make sure you rate, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you later.